The holographic chamber in Geneva flickered with alien faces. Ambassador Chen Li stood alone in the center, surrounded by 900 representatives from across the galaxy. Each face belonged to a different species. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few were just clouds of glowing gas contained in special suits. They all stared at her with the same expression. Judgment. Chen Li had known this day would come. She had warned Earth's government 3 years ago, when humanity first applied to join the Galactic Council. The aliens were afraid of humans. Not because humans were violent, but because humans were different. The Supreme Arbiter, a creature that looked like a floating jellyfish with too many eyes, spoke in a voice that the translator made sound cold and mechanical. The Council has reached its decision regarding species designation, human. After careful consideration of your application for membership, we have concluded that your species poses an unacceptable risk to galactic stability. Chen Li said nothing. She kept her face calm, even though her heart was racing. Your species achieved faster-than-light travel in only 300 years of spaceflight, the Arbiter continued. This pace of advancement is unprecedented and dangerous. Most civilized species required 5,000 to 10,000 years to reach the same milestone. Your rapid progress suggests an unstable and unpredictable nature. A reptilian creature from the Krell Dominion leaned forward. Your military structures are also concerning. You maintain separate armed forces for different regions of your planet. You have not achieved true unity. You still fight among yourselves, Chen Li wanted to argue. She wanted to tell them that human diversity was a strength, not a weakness. That competition drove innovation. That different perspectives led to better solutions. But she knew they would not listen. The Council had already made up its mind. Furthermore, the Arbiter said, your species has shown alarming tendencies toward artificial intelligence, genetic modification, and neural enhancement. These technologies are forbidden by Council law for good reason. They lead to instability and chaos. A small, furry creature that reminded Chen Li of a cat stood up. The Council has quarantined 12 species in our 200,000 years of existence. 11 of those species are now extinct. We do not make this decision lightly. The threat was clear: obey or die. Therefore, the Arbiter announced, effective immediately, humanity is hereby quarantined to the Sol system. A 50-light-year exclusion zone will be established and enforced by Council warships. Any human vessel that crosses this boundary will be destroyed without warning. All trade agreements are terminated. All cultural exchanges are cancelled. Earth's colonies may remain, but they will receive no support from Council space. The holographic images began to fade one by one. The aliens were leaving. The trial was over. Wait, Chen Li said quietly. The Arbiter paused. You wish to speak? I want to understand, Chen Li said. You say we're dangerous because we advance too quickly. You say we're unpredictable because we're diverse. You say we're unstable because we develop new technologies. But isn't that just fear? Fear of competition? Fear of change? The Arbiter's many eyes blinked slowly. You prove our point, Ambassador. A wiser species would accept this judgment with humility. You respond with defiance. This is why you cannot join us. The hologram vanished. Chen Li stood alone in the empty chamber. The lights dimmed automatically. Outside, she could hear the sounds of Geneva at night. Traffic, voices, life continuing as if nothing had changed. But everything had changed. She walked out of the chamber and found Admiral Sarah Kovich waiting in the hallway. The military commander was a tall woman with short gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had been watching the proceedings from the observation room. So they actually did it, Kovich said. The cowards. They're afraid of us, Chen Li replied. I almost feel sorry for them. Don't, Kovich said. Fear makes people cruel, and they just declared war on humanity, whether they admit it or not. They walked together through the empty corridors of the United Earth Government building. Their footsteps echoed on the marble floors. Chen Li felt tired. She had spent 3 years trying to convince the Council that humanity deserved a chance. 3 years of careful diplomacy and patient explanations. All wasted. What happens now? Chen Li asked. Kovich smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Now we show them what humans do best. We adapt. We overcome. We survive. They entered a secure conference room deep in the building. Inside, a dozen people waited around a large table. Scientists, military officers, politicians, and engineers. The best minds humanity had to offer. Dr. Marcus Webb, the lead scientist of Earth's advanced research programs, was already presenting data on holographic screens. "The Council's blockade went active 17 minutes ago," he said. "We're detecting 143 warships in position around the Sol system. They're maintaining a perimeter at exactly 50 light-years. Can we fight them?" asked General Torres, the head of the Mars Defense Force. "Not yet," Kovac admitted. "Their technology is still superior to ours in most areas. But that won't last long." Webb nodded enthusiastically. "We've been studying the alien technology we obtained during first contact. Their ships, their weapons, their computers. And I've discovered something interesting. They haven't innovated in thousands of years. Their technology is advanced, yes, but it's stagnant. They improve things incrementally, but they never take risks. They never try radical new approaches." "And we do," Chen Li said, understanding. "We do," Webb confirmed. "We've already made breakthroughs they never considered. Artificial intelligence, quantum computing, neural interfaces, all the things they're afraid of. All the things they banned. Those are our advantages." Kovac pulled up a classified file on the main screen. "Project Prometheus. We've been working on it in secret for 5 years, ever since we first made contact with the Council. We suspected they might not welcome us, so we prepared." The screen showed designs for ships unlike anything humanity currently had. Sleek, dangerous, and built with technologies that the Council had never developed because they were too afraid to try. "These are our quantum fold drives," Webb explained. "Faster than anything the Council uses. These are our rail cannons firing projectiles at 30% the speed of light. These are our stealth systems, using quantum uncertainty to hide from sensors. And these are our AI-assisted tactical systems, making decisions faster than any organic pilot." "How long until we can build these?" asked the Secretary General. "The lunar shipyards are already under construction," Kovac said. "We've been preparing for this. In 3 years, we'll have a fleet. In 5 years, we'll have an armada. In 10 years, we'll be unstoppable." Chen Li looked at the designs and felt something stirring in her chest. Not fear, not anger. Something else, pride. The Council thought they could lock humanity in a cage and watch them wither. They thought humans would beg for mercy or collapse under isolation. They were wrong. "There's something else," Kovac said quietly. "We've established contact with a Varaxi trader. His name is Seth. He's been smuggling information to us. He says not all Council species agree with the quarantine. Some of them see it for what it is, tyranny. Can we trust him?" Torres asked. "He's risking his life to help us," Kovac said. "That counts for something. And the intelligence he's provided has been accurate so far. He told us about the blockade before it happened." Chen Li stood and walked to the window. Outside, she could see the lights of the city. Millions of people going about their lives. They didn't know yet that humanity had been exiled from the galaxy. They didn't know that an alien fleet was surrounding their solar system. They didn't know that their species had just been declared too dangerous to exist among the stars. But they would know soon. And when they did, Chen Li knew exactly how humans would respond. Not with surrender. Not with despair. With defiance. "Send a message to all colonies," Chen Li said. "Mars, Europa, Titan, all of them. Tell them what happened. Tell them the Council fears us. And tell them we're going to prove that fear was justified." She turned back to face the room. "We're going to build our own empire. Not because we want to conquer the galaxy, but because we refuse to be prisoners in our own solar system. The Council thinks they've ended humanity's journey to the stars. They're wrong. They've just given us a reason to fly higher than any of them ever dared." Kovac nodded approvingly. "What about negotiations? Do we try to appeal the decision?" Chen Li thought about the Arbiter's cold eyes, the dismissive tone, the barely concealed contempt. "No," she said. "We're done asking for permission. From now on, humanity walks its own path." Outside, the stars shone bright and distant. 50 light-years away, alien ships patrolled the boundary of humanity's cage. They thought they had contained a threat. They had no idea what they had unleashed. The first year after the quarantine was the hardest. Supply ships from Council space stopped arriving. Trade routes that connected Earth's colonies dried up overnight. On Europa, the water processing plants nearly failed because replacement parts never came. On Titan, food supplies ran low. People started to panic. Some colonies demanded independence from Earth. They blamed the homeworld for angering the Council. They wanted to negotiate their own deals, to surrender and beg for mercy. Admiral Kovac had to send peacekeepers to 3 different colonies to prevent riots. But slowly, humanity adapted. They always did. Dr. Webb's team worked 18-hour days in the laboratories beneath the lunar surface. They took apart every piece of alien technology humanity had obtained. Computers, engines, weapons, communication devices. They studied how each component worked, then figured out how to make it better. "Look at this," Webb said to his team one morning. He was holding a processor from an alien computer. "This is advanced, yes, but it's also limited. The Council designed it to be safe, to never make mistakes, to never take risks. And that makes it slow," said Dr. Yuki Tanaka, his deputy. "Exactly," Webb said. "They sacrificed speed for safety. They sacrificed innovation for stability. But we don't have to make those same choices." Within 6 months, Webb's team had created a new computer processor. It used quantum calculations that the Council considered too dangerous. It incorporated artificial intelligence that the Council had banned. It was 3 times faster than anything the aliens used. "This is just the beginning," Webb told Admiral Kovacs during a briefing. "Their technology is like a tree. It grows slowly and steadily. Ours is like fire. It spreads fast and consumes everything." Kovacs liked that metaphor. She used it in her speeches to the fleet. The lunar shipyards expanded rapidly. Before the quarantine, they had been small facilities for building research vessels and cargo haulers. Now they covered hundreds of square kilometers. Thousands of workers lived in temporary habitats on the moon's surface, building the ships that would secure humanity's future. The first new warship was named the TSV Stephen Hawking. It was unlike anything humanity had built before. Sleek and dark, covered in stealth materials that absorbed sensor beams, powered by quantum fold drives that could jump across space faster than Council ships could track, armed with rail cannons that fired tungsten slugs at incredible speeds. When the Hawking completed its first test flight, Admiral Kovacs stood in the observation deck and watched it maneuver through the asteroid belt. It moved like a predator, silent, fast, deadly, beautiful, she whispered. Beside her, Captain James Rivera, the Hawking's commander, nodded. "She handles better than anything I've ever flown. The AI assistance is incredible. It anticipates my commands before I give them. The Council banned AI for a reason," Kovacs said. "They were afraid of it. But we're not." Meanwhile, Earth's colonies began to thrive in unexpected ways. Cut off from Council trade, they were forced to become self-sufficient. Mars developed massive underground farms. Europa's engineers created new water purification systems that were more efficient than the alien technology they had been using. Titan started mining rare elements from Saturn's rings. Humanity was discovering that they didn't need the Council as much as the Council thought they did. And then there was Seth, the Varaxi trader, had been visiting Earth secretly for 2 years now. His ship would slip through the blockade using methods even his own people didn't fully understand. He would dock at a hidden facility on the dark side of the moon, deliver information and supplies, and disappear again before the Council patrols noticed. Seth was a strange creature. He looked like a cross between a snake and a bird, with iridescent scales and a long, flexible neck. When he spoke, his translator gave him a voice that sounded amused by everything. "Your Council brothers are getting nervous," Seth told Chen Li during one of his visits. They sat in a small meeting room, drinking tea that Seth seemed to enjoy despite his alien biology. "What are they saying?" Chen Li asked. "That the quarantine was a mistake," Seth replied. "Not publicly, of course. But in private conversations, many species are asking questions. Why are we so afraid of one new species? What threat do they actually pose? Some are starting to remember the last species the Council quarantined, the Vorlani. What happened to them?" Seth's scales rippled in what might have been sadness. They went extinct. The isolation killed them. Their population declined. Their technology stagnated, and within 2 generations they were gone. The Council claimed it was inevitable. But some of us wonder if it was murder disguised as policy. Chen Li felt cold. "They want that to happen to us." "Some do," Seth admitted. "The old species, the ones who have controlled the Council for thousands of years. They fear change. They fear competition. But others, like my people, see opportunity. We see a potential ally, a species with fresh ideas and new perspectives." "Why are you helping us?" Chen Li asked directly. Seth was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Because the Varaxi were almost quarantined once. 8,000 years ago, we developed technology the Council considered dangerous. We face the same judgment you face now. But we were lucky. We had allies who spoke for us. We were given a second chance. I help you because I remember that fear, and because I believe the galaxy needs humans whether it knows it or not. The intelligence Seth provided was invaluable. He told them about Council ship movements, about political divisions within the Council, about secret research stations and hidden trade routes, and most importantly about the Council's weaknesses. They have not fought a real war in 12,000 years, Seth explained. Their military exists to enforce order, not to face actual threats. Their tactics are ancient. Their commanders are bureaucrats, not warriors. If you fight them, you will surprise them. Admiral Kovac used this information to develop new strategies. Human military doctrine evolved rapidly. They studied every war humanity had ever fought, from ancient battles to modern conflicts. They combined lessons from all of human history into a new way of fighting: speed, aggression, unpredictability. These became the core principles of the Terran sovereignty fleet. By the end of the second year, humanity had built 30 new warships, not a large fleet by Council standards, but enough to begin planning. Kovac gathered her captains in a secure conference room on the moon. The Council expects us to stay contained, she told them. They expect us to gradually weaken and eventually beg for mercy. We're going to do the opposite. We're going to break out of this cage and establish our own colonies beyond their borders. Won't they try to stop us? Captain Rivera asked. Of course, Kovac said with a smile. That's what I'm counting on. We need to show them that we're not victims. We're not prisoners. We're a force they need to respect. The plan was ambitious. A fleet of exploration ships would jump beyond the 50 light-year exclusion zone and search for habitable systems. Systems the Council had ignored or considered unsuitable. Humanity would claim them and establish colonies before the Council could react. What if they send their fleet after our colonies? Asked Captain Sarah O'Brien of the TSV Copernicus. Then we fight, Kovac said simply. And we win. Because we have something they don't. We have motivation, we have innovation, and we have nothing to lose. 3 years after the quarantine began, the Exodus fleet was ready. 20 ships carrying 5 million colonists in cryogenic sleep. Scientists, engineers, farmers, teachers, and soldiers. Everything needed to start new civilizations on distant worlds. Dr. Webb gave each ship a gift. Advanced manufacturing systems that could build almost anything from raw materials, self-replicating construction robots, quantum computers loaded with all of human knowledge, seeds from Earth, DNA samples from thousands of species. You're carrying humanity's future, Webb told the crews. Make us proud. The night before the Exodus fleet launched, Chen Li visited the observation deck on the moon. She looked at Earth hanging in the black sky. Blue and white and beautiful. Home. Do you think we'll succeed? Captain Rivera asked. He had come to stand beside her. I think we don't have a choice, Chen Li replied. The Council tried to bury us, but they forgot something important about humans. What's that? Chen Li smiled. We're very good at climbing out of graves. The Exodus fleet launched at dawn. 20 ships flickering into quantum fold jumps, vanishing from the Sol system in bursts of light. The Council's blockade detected the departures, but by the time they reacted, the ships were already light years away. Admiral Kovac watched them go from her command center. Then she turned to her staff. Begin Phase 2. It's time to remind the Council that they're not the only power in this galaxy anymore. Far away, on a Council station near the quarantine line, alarms suddenly blared. Sensors detected something impossible. A human ship had just appeared on their side of the boundary, and it was not running away. It was coming straight toward them. The TSV Stephen Hawking crossed the quarantine line at exactly 0600 hours. Captain Rivera sat in the command chair, his hands steady on the controls. Around him, his crew worked silently at their stations. Everyone knew what was about to happen. Council ships are moving to intercept, reported Lieutenant Chen at the sensor station. 30 vessels. Krell heavy cruisers mostly. They're forming a blockade formation. Predictable, Rivera muttered. The AI tactical system had already predicted this exact response. The Council followed their standard procedures like clockwork. That was their weakness. Open a channel, Rivera ordered. The view screen flickered to life, showing a reptilian Krell commander. His scales were deep green and his eyes were cold. Human vessel, you have violated the quarantine. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in your destruction, Rivera smiled. I have a better idea. You could turn around and go home. The Krell commander's mouth opened in what might have been surprise or anger. "You are alone. We are 30. Your arrogance will be your end." "Probably," Rivera agreed. "But let's find out." He cut the transmission and turned to his weapons officer. "Lieutenant Park, you may fire when ready." What happened next lasted only 17 minutes, but it changed the balance of power in the galaxy. The Hawking didn't fight like a council ship. It didn't sit still and exchange fire in the orderly way the aliens expected. Instead, it moved. Fast. The quantum fold drive let it make micro-jumps, appearing and disappearing across the battlefield faster than the Krell could track. The rail cannons fired. Tungsten slugs accelerated to 30% of light speed. They hit with the force of small nuclear weapons. The first Krell ship's shields collapsed in seconds. The second shot punched through the hull and the ship went dead in space. "Target 2 disabled," Park reported calmly. Moving to Target 3. The Krell fleet tried to adapt. They spread out, fired more weapons, predicted where the Hawking would appear next. But the human ship's AI was always one step ahead. It calculated probabilities, ran simulations, and chose the optimal position every time. Jump, fire, jump, fire. The pattern repeated with mechanical precision. The Krell commander tried to call for reinforcements, but the Hawking's electronic warfare systems jammed his communications. Another banned technology that the Council feared. Another advantage that humanity exploited. By minute 12, 22 Krell ships were disabled. Not destroyed. Rivera's orders were specific. Show overwhelming force but minimize casualties. The goal was not to start a war. The goal was to send a message. The remaining 8 Krell ships retreated. "Should we pursue?" asked the helmsman. "No," Rivera said. "Let them run. Let them tell their commanders what they saw. Let them spread fear." The Hawking made one final quantum fold jump and vanished, returning to Sol system before Council reinforcements could arrive. When Admiral Kovach heard the battle report, she allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. Then she got back to work. The real challenge was just beginning. The Council's response was swift and predictable. Within 48 hours, they declared an emergency session. 500 warships were dispatched to the Sol system with orders to pacify humanity once and for all. The Krell Dominion, humiliated by their defeat, demanded that humans be eliminated entirely. But not all Council species agreed. The Varaxi delegation, led by Seth's cousin, argued for restraint. Other species, curious about humanity's sudden technological leap, wanted to study rather than destroy. The Council was fracturing. Admiral Kovach didn't wait for the invasion fleet to arrive. She launched humanity's next move. The Exodus fleet, which had been traveling for 3 weeks, arrived at their target systems. 20 different star systems that the Council had surveyed and dismissed. Too many asteroids, too much radiation, unstable suns, hostile environments. All the things that made the Council nervous. All the things that humans saw as challenges to overcome. Captain O'Brien of the War, Copernicus led the colonization of the system they named New Terra. The planet was harsh. The atmosphere was thin. The temperature swung wildly between day and night. The Council had called it unsuitable for habitation. O'Brien disagreed. "This is perfect," she told her crew as they deployed the first habitat modules. "No Council species would ever want this place, which means they'll never bother us here." Within weeks, the colonists were using Webb's construction robots to build underground cities. Massive dome habitats appeared on the surface. Automated mining stations dug into asteroid belts, extracting resources. The colony grew faster than anyone expected, and it wasn't just New Terra. All 20 colonies succeeded. Humanity had spread across a volume of space larger than the entire Krell Dominion. In 3 weeks, they had created an empire. Back in the Sol system, Admiral Kovach prepared for the coming battle. She knew the Council fleet would arrive soon. She knew they would expect humanity to surrender. She also knew they would be wrong. "We can't win a straight fight," General Torres argued during a strategy meeting. 500 ships against our 30? The math doesn't work." "Then we don't fight straight," Kovach replied. She pulled up a tactical display of the Sol system. "We turn our entire system into a fortress. Every moon, every asteroid, every piece of space debris becomes a weapon." The preparations were massive. Automated defense platforms were hidden throughout the asteroid belt. Millions of small drones, each carrying a simple kinetic warhead, were deployed in orbital clouds. Mines were placed at likely jump points. and the human fleet learned to use Earth's moon as mobile cover. The Council expects us to meet them in open space like honorable warriors, Kovac explained. We're going to disappoint them. When the Krell invasion fleet arrived, they found something unexpected. The Sol system was quiet. No human ships appeared to challenge them. No communications were sent. Just silence. The Krell Commander Superior, a massive reptilian warrior named Jacques, studied his sensors with confusion. Where are they? Where are the human ships? Scattered across the system, sir, his tactical officer reported. Small groups. Never more than 5 ships together. They're hiding. Cowards, Jacques growled. They know they cannot face us. Begin the assault on Earth. We will end this quickly. It was exactly what Kovac wanted him to think. The Krell fleet moved into the inner system in their standard formation, a massive wall of ships, intimidating and powerful. They approached Earth slowly, expecting surrender. Instead, they flew into a nightmare. The first mines detonated when the fleet reached Mars orbit. Not nuclear, kinetic. Simple masses accelerated to high speeds. The Krell shields held, but the fleet had to slow down and spread out. Then the drones attacked, millions of them swarming from every direction. Each drone was tiny and expendable. The Krell point defense systems shot down thousands, but there were always more. The drones didn't need to destroy ships. They just needed to distract them. While the Krell were busy with the drones, the human ships struck. Quick hit-and-run attacks. A human frigate would appear, fire its rail cannons, and jump away before the Krell could respond. Then another ship would attack from a different angle. Then another. The Krell formation started to break apart. Ships maneuvered to avoid mines. Commanders shouted contradictory orders. The organized invasion became chaos. Admiral Kovac watched from the command center on the moon. They're confused. Good. Keep the pressure on. Don't let them reorganize. The battle lasted 6 hours. It was brutal. Humanity lost ships. Good crews died. But the Krell suffered far worse. They had expected a quick, easy victory against a primitive species. Instead, they faced an enemy that refused to fight fair. That used every trick, every advantage, every unconventional tactic. When Commander Superior Jacques finally ordered a retreat, he had lost over 200 ships, more than a third of his fleet. The survivors limped away, their ships damaged, their confidence shattered. They had come to pacify Earth. Instead, they had been humiliated. Admiral Kovac didn't celebrate. She knew this was just the beginning. The Council would send more fleets, bigger fleets, but she also knew that humanity had bought time. Time to grow stronger, time to expand further, time to build more ships. She opened a channel that broadcast across the entire galaxy. Any species with the technology to receive it would hear her message. Ambassador Chen Li appeared on the screen beside her. Together they spoke to the galaxy. This is Ambassador Chen Li of Earth speaking on behalf of humanity. 3 years ago, the Galactic Council declared us outlaws. They quarantined our system. They tried to cage us like animals. Kovac continued. Today we showed them the price of that decision. We are not prisoners. We are not victims. We are humanity, and we will not be contained. Chen Li's expression softened slightly. We don't seek war. We don't want conquest. We only want what every species deserves. Freedom, the right to exist, the right to explore, the right to determine our own future. The Council called us dangerous, Kovac said. They were right. We are dangerous. To tyranny. To stagnation. To anyone who thinks they can control us. Chen Li finished the message. We're not asking for permission anymore. We're not begging to join your council. We're building our own path, and we invite any species who values freedom over fear to join us. The quarantine ends now. On our terms, the transmission ended. 5 years after the Battle of Sol, humanity controlled 61 star systems. The Terran sovereignty, as it now called itself, had become a genuine power in the galaxy. But Admiral Kovac, now promoted to Fleet Marshal, knew that military strength alone would not be enough. We need allies, she told Chen Li during a meeting on New Terra, the sovereignty's second capital. Real allies, not just trading partners. Chen Li, now serving as the sovereignty's diplomatic director, nodded. Seth's people have been making overtures. The Varaxi want to formally join us. But there's a problem. What problem? If the Varaxi leave the council, it will be seen as an act of war. The council might retaliate against them. Kovac leaned back in her chair. Then we make it clear that any attack on the Varaxi is an attack on the sovereignty. We protect them. 3 months later, the Varaxi delegation arrived at New Terra. Seth led them. His scales had dulled slightly with age, but his eyes were still sharp and amused. "My people have voted," Seth announced in the Sovereignty Assembly. "We choose freedom over fear. We choose partnership with humanity over servitude to the Council." Today, the Varaxi formally joined the Terran sovereignty. The vote was unanimous. The assembly chamber erupted in cheers. Humans and Varaxi celebrated together. It was the first time in galactic history that a council species had voluntarily left to join another faction. The council's response was immediate and harsh. They declared the Varaxi traitors. They seized Varaxi assets in council space. They threatened sanctions against any species that traded with them. But the threats rang hollow. The council was already weakening. The defeat at Sol had damaged their reputation. Now one of their member species had defected. Other species began asking dangerous questions. The Varaxi brought more than just their population to the sovereignty. They brought knowledge, trading networks, diplomatic contacts, and most importantly, they brought other species. Within a year, 3 more species joined the sovereignty. The Melodians, a species of artists and philosophers who had been suppressed by council censorship. The Architects, mathematical geniuses who had been frustrated by council restrictions on AI research. And the Shen, a warrior culture that respected strength and honor. Each species brought unique gifts. The Melodians created beautiful art that reminded humanity why they fought. The Architects helped design better computers and ships. The Shen trained alongside human marines, sharing combat techniques that had been refined over thousands of years. The sovereignty wasn't a human empire. It was something new, a genuine multi-species civilization based on equality and merit, not hierarchy and tradition. Dr. Webb, working with architect scientists, made breakthrough after breakthrough. Quantum computing reached new levels of sophistication. Biotechnology allowed for rapid terraforming. Nanotechnology created materials stronger than anything the Council could produce. The difference is philosophy, Webb explained to a group of visiting architect researchers. The Council develops technology cautiously, always asking, what could go wrong? We ask, what could go right? Both approaches have value, but ours is faster. The sovereignty's economy boomed. Human innovation combined with alien expertise created a technological revolution. Products made in sovereignty space were better and cheaper than Council equivalents. Black market traders smuggled them into Council territory, where demand was enormous. Border systems, the ones closest to sovereignty space, began trading openly despite Council prohibitions. The economic benefits were too great to ignore. Local governors looked the other way. The Council's central authority continued to erode. But not everyone in the Council was ready to accept the new reality. The hierarchy, an alliance of the oldest and most powerful species, saw the sovereignty as an existential threat. They demanded action. In a secret meeting on the ancient world of primacy, the hierarchy's leaders gathered. These were species that had ruled the galaxy for hundreds of thousands of years. They had survived countless challenges. They would not surrender their power to upstart humans. The sovereignty must be destroyed, declared the representative of the Eternal Throne, a species so old that no one remembered their original name. Before they grow too strong? Agreed, said the Krell Supreme Commander. We have been too cautious. We should have eliminated humanity when we first discovered them. 200 species joined the hierarchy's new faction, calling themselves the Purity Alliance. Their stated goal was to preserve traditional galactic civilization. Their real goal was to crush the sovereignty. The remaining Council species, led by the Varaxi's former allies, refused to join the alliance. They argued for peaceful coexistence. The Council split in two. Fleet Marshal Kovac watched the political developments with concern. A civil war is coming, she told her senior officers. The galaxy is choosing sides and we're in the middle. Can we win? Asked Admiral Rivera, now commanding the entire First Fleet. That depends on how many species join each side, Kovac replied. Right now, the Purity Alliance has more ships, but we have better technology and better tactics. It will be close. The sovereignty prepared for the worst. Shipyards ran at maximum capacity. Every adult received basic military training. Defensive stations were built around every colony. The entire civilization became a fortress. But Kovac also pursued a different strategy. We need to show other species that we're not monsters. she told Chen Li. Every time the Alliance claims we're dangerous barbarians, we need to prove them wrong. The opportunity came 6 months later. A council mining operation in disputed space was discovered using slave labor. 50,000 beings from a pre-FTL species had been kidnapped and forced to work in brutal conditions. It was technically legal under old council laws that no one had enforced in millennia. The Sovereignty fleet jumped into the system before the Alliance could respond. Admiral Rivera led the operation personally. "This is the TSV Stephen Hawking to the mining station," Rivera broadcast. "We know you're using slave labor. That ends now. Release the prisoners immediately." The station commander, a reptilian overseer, laughed. "You have no authority here, human. This is council space. This is legal." "Not anymore," Rivera said. "You have 1 hour to comply." The station refused. Rivera didn't hesitate. His Marines stormed the facility, overwhelmed the guards, and freed the prisoners. Not a single slave was harmed in the operation. The station personnel were detained but not injured. The freed slaves, a species that looked like large, six-legged mammals, stared at their rescuers in confusion and wonder. They had never seen humans before. They had no idea who these strange bipeds were. A young human Marine, Corporal Lisa Martinez, knelt beside one of the freed slaves. The creature was trembling with fear and exhaustion. Martinez gently offered water and food. "It's okay," she said softly, even though she knew the creature couldn't understand. "You're safe now. No one will hurt you anymore." The creature looked into Martinez's eyes. Something passed between them. Understanding, recognition, the universal language of compassion. News of the rescue spread across the galaxy. The Sovereignty released video footage of the operation. The contrast was stark. The brutal conditions of the slave camp, the gentle treatment of the freed prisoners, the professionalism of the human Marines. The Purity Alliance tried to spin the story. They claimed the Sovereignty had violated council space, that humans had no right to interfere, that the mining operation had been legal, but the images spoke louder than words. Sentient beings in chains, children working in toxic conditions, guards beating prisoners. 17 council species immediately announced they would not join the Purity Alliance. 8 species that had been neutral declared support for the Sovereignty. The moral battle was won even before the military conflict began. The freed slaves asked to join the Sovereignty. They called themselves the Rescued, and they became humanity's most loyal allies. They had seen the difference between council law and council justice. They had experienced both cruelty and kindness. They chose to stand with the species that had freed them. Ambassador Chen Li welcomed them personally. "The Sovereignty stands for one principle above all others," she told the rescued leaders. "Every sentient being has the right to freedom. We will defend that right, no matter the cost." The Sovereignty now included 7 different species, hundreds of worlds, thousands of ships, millions of citizens. It was no longer just humanity's empire. It was a genuine civilization built on shared values rather than shared biology. Fleet Marshal Kovac looked at the strategic maps and saw the galaxy changing. Border systems were defecting from the Council daily. The Purity Alliance was growing more desperate. A major confrontation was inevitable. "When they come," she told her officers, "they'll come with everything they have. The Alliance won't accept anything less than our total destruction. This won't be a border skirmish. This will be a war that determines the future of the galaxy." Admiral Rivera studied the defensive plans. "We're outnumbered 3-1, maybe 4-1 if all Alliance species commit their full fleets." "Numbers don't tell the whole story," Kovac replied. "They have more ships, yes, but our ships are better. Our crews are better trained. Our tactics are more flexible, and most importantly, our people know what they're fighting for. They fight for freedom. The Alliance fights to preserve their privilege." The war began without warning. The Purity Alliance attacked 30 Sovereignty border systems simultaneously. 8,000 warships struck in coordinated strikes designed to overwhelm the defenders. Fleet Marshal Kovac received the reports in her command center on New Terra. Her staff waited for her reaction. She read each report carefully, her face expressionless. "Casualties?" she asked. "Heavy at first," Admiral Rivera reported. "They hit us hard, but our defensive stations are holding, and our fleets are already moving to counterattack." Kovac nodded. "This is what we prepared for. Send the signal. Execute Plan Thunderbolt." Across sovereignty space, fleets that had been waiting in hidden locations suddenly jumped into action. They didn't move to defend the systems under attack. Instead, they struck deep into Alliance territory, hitting supply bases and logistics centers. The Alliance had expected a defensive war. They got the opposite. The Threshold War, as historians would call it, lasted 18 months. It was the largest military conflict the galaxy had seen in 12,000 years. Hundreds of battles, thousands of ships destroyed, millions of lives lost. The Battle of New Terra came in the war's third month. The Alliance committed a massive fleet to capture the Sovereignty's second capital. 3,000 ships jumped into the system, confident that sheer numbers would overwhelm the defenders. Admiral Rivera commanded the defense from the TSV Stephen Hawking. He watched the Alliance fleet form up and smiled grimly. "They're using the standard council formation," he told his tactical officer. "They haven't learned anything. Should we engage?" His weapons officer asked. "Not yet," Rivera replied. "Let them come closer. Let them commit to their approach vector." The Alliance fleet advanced slowly, maintaining their formation. It was textbook council tactics. Overwhelming force applied methodically. It had worked for thousands of years against disorganized pirates and minor threats. It didn't work against humanity. When the Alliance fleet reached optimal range, Rivera gave the signal. The real defenders appeared. Not just the obvious ships, but hundreds of smaller vessels that had been hiding in the planet's moonshadows and asteroid fields. Automated defense platforms that had been playing dead suddenly activated. The Sovereignty forces didn't meet the Alliance head-on. They swarmed. Attack from above, from below, from the sides. Never staying in one place, never giving the Alliance ships a stable target. The Shen warriors fighting alongside human crews showed their worth. Their reflexes were faster than humans. Their spatial awareness was superior. Combined with human tactical innovation, they were devastating. The battle lasted 6 hours. The Alliance lost nearly half their fleet. The survivors retreated in disorder. New Terra was saved, but the Sovereignty paid a price. 900 ships destroyed, 20,000 crew members dead. Captain Sarah O'Brien of the Copernicus was among them. She died when her ship made a desperate ramming attack to save a troop transport. Kovac attended the memorial service personally. She stood before the wall of names and felt the weight of every death. "They died protecting our freedom," she said to the assembled mourners. "They died so that no species would ever be quarantined again. They died so that the galaxy could be something better than it was. We honor them by finishing what they started." The war's turning point came at the Andros Nebula. The Purity Alliance committed their grand fleet. 8,000 ships. It was supposed to be the decisive blow. The battle that would crush the Sovereignty once and for all. The Alliance Supreme Commander, an ancient being called the Eternal Voice, personally led the fleet. This creature had lived for 10,000 years. It had commanded fleets before humans even discovered fire. It was confident in its experience and wisdom. It was about to learn that experience meant nothing against innovation. Fleet Marshal Kovac had been preparing for this battle for months. The Andros Nebula was perfect. Dense clouds of gas and dust that confused sensors. Magnetic fields that disrupted communications. The Alliance would enter the nebula because that's where Kovac's fleet appeared to be. A tempting target. It was a trap. When the Alliance fleet entered the nebula, they found 3,000 Sovereignty ships waiting. The odds were still in the Alliance's favor, but the Sovereignty had prepared the battlefield. Automated mines were hidden throughout the nebula. Not explosive mines. Magnetic mines that grabbed ships and held them in place. Communication jammers that turned the Alliance fleet into isolated groups. And then came the new weapons. Humanity's latest innovation. Plasma lances that used the nebula's own gas as fuel. They fired beams of superheated matter that burned through Alliance shields like paper. The battle was chaos. The Alliance fleet couldn't maintain formation. Commanders couldn't coordinate. Ships fought individually instead of as a unified force. The Sovereignty forces used every advantage. Human ships coordinated through quantum-encrypted channels that the Alliance couldn't jam. Firaxi navigators guided ships through the nebula's most dangerous regions. Architect-designed battle computers predicted enemy movements with uncanny accuracy. Shen boarding parties captured disabled Alliance vessels. 6 hours into the battle, the Eternal Voice realized the truth. The Alliance was losing. Badly. The ancient commander tried to order a retreat, but half the fleet couldn't receive the signal. Those that did retreat found that the sovereignty had blocked the obvious exit routes. They had to scatter, jumping randomly to escape. When the battle ended, the Alliance had lost more than 5,000 ships. The sovereignty lost 900. It was a crushing defeat. The war didn't end immediately. The Alliance fought on for another year, but everyone knew the outcome. More Alliance species withdrew from the fight. Some negotiated separate peace treaties with the sovereignty. Others had internal revolutions that overthrew their leadership. The Krell Dominion, which had started the conflict by demanding humanity's extermination, suffered the most. Their supreme commander was overthrown by younger officers who recognized that the old ways were failing. The new leadership immediately sued for peace. Ambassador Chen Li, now elderly and using a cane, negotiated the peace treaty. She met with representatives from both sides in a neutral station. "We don't want your surrender," she told the Alliance delegates. "We don't want your territory. We don't want revenge. We want peace. Real peace, based on mutual respect and mutual benefit." The Alliance delegates looked at each other in confusion. They had expected demands, reparations, territory concessions. They had come prepared to negotiate from weakness. Chen Li saw their confusion and smiled gently. "The sovereignty was born because the Council tried to control us. We won't make the same mistake. We won't try to control you. We're offering you a choice. Join us in building something new or go your separate way. Either way, we'll respect your decision." It took 6 months to hammer out the details, but eventually, the Galactic Compact was signed. 623 species joined. Some from the old Council, some from the Purity Alliance, some who had been neutral, some who were newly discovered. The Compact's founding principles were simple. No species was superior to another. Technology would be shared, not hoarded. Every species had the right to self-determination. Membership was voluntary. Decisions were made by majority vote, not by the oldest or most powerful. It was everything the old Council had not been. The Purity Alliance species were offered membership under the same terms as everyone else. Most accepted. A few retreated into isolation, determined to preserve their old ways. The Compact let them go. Freedom meant the freedom to choose. Fleet Marshal Kovach retired shortly after the war ended. She was 68 years old and tired. She had spent 20 years fighting for humanity's survival. It was time to rest. At her retirement ceremony, she stood before thousands of people. Human, Varaxi, Shen, Melodian, and dozens of other species. They had all come to honor her. "I'm a soldier," she said simply. "I did what soldiers do. I protected my people." But the real victory wasn't won by soldiers. It was won by dreamers, by scientists who dared to innovate, by diplomats who dared to negotiate, by ordinary people who dared to believe that the galaxy could be better. She looked out at the audience. The Council feared humanity because we were different. They were right to fear us, not because we were violent, but because we represented change. We proved that new ideas could challenge old traditions, that cooperation could beat hierarchy, that the future belongs to those willing to embrace it. Ambassador Chen Li gave the final address to the first meeting of the Galactic Compact Assembly. She was 81 years old. She had spent her entire adult life working for this moment. 50 years ago, I stood before the Galactic Council and heard them declare humanity outlaws, she said. Her voice was weak but clear. They said we were too dangerous, too unpredictable, too different. They were afraid of what we might become. She paused and looked around the massive chamber. Hundreds of species, thousands of delegates. A true galactic civilization. They were right to be afraid, Chen Li continued. We did change the galaxy, but not through conquest, not through domination. We changed it by refusing to accept that things had to stay the same. We showed that progress was possible, that different species could work together as equals, that freedom was worth fighting for.